Hello everyone, welcome to the Daily Current Affair Analysis brought to you by Shankar IAS Academy, 13th September 2025. Before getting into the discussion, please make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you haven't, please do subscribe and also hit the bell icon to receive on-time updates from the Academy. So starting with the topics for the discussion today, the first topic is vitamin B12 and heart health. So this topic is talking about the importance of B12 and how the deficiency of the B12 is related to heart problems. And the next article is regarding the biosignatures in the Mars. So recently the Perseverance mission of the United States found the biosignatures in the rock samples of the Mars. And the next article is regarding the present Nepal crisis and how it is affecting the Indo-Nepal relationship. And the next topic is sleep and health. So this article is talking about the importance of sleep and how the sleep is protected as a fundamental right in India and also across the world. And finally, we will be discussing some of the important prelims related topics in the Prelims Focus. So without much delay, let's begin the discussion with the first article. Is vitamin B12 deficiency rising your heart attack risk? The article is taken from Indian Express. So this article is talking about the importance of vitamin B12 and how the deficiency is related to the cardiovascular problem. So in this background, let us discuss more about this article. So first we'll start with a short introduction about the vitamin B12. It is a water soluble vitamin which is mostly found in the animal based food like meat, fish, dairy and egg. And this vitamin is very important for the formation of red blood cell, brain and nerve functioning, and also for DNA synthesis. So that is why you can see that the people who are following the vegetarian pattern of diet or vegans are at the high risk of the B12 deficiency. And coming to the danger behind the deficiency of the B12. So you can see that the people without sufficient B12 in their body may experience anemia. So due to this anemia, the red blood cell in the blood will not develop properly. As a result, the people will experience fatigue, weakness and pale skin. And the next is a neurological problem. So we know that for the better functioning of the brain, for the better function of the nerve system, this B12 is very important. So due to the deficiency, the people will experience numbness and tingling in the different parts of the body, and they may experience poor balance when they're performing any task, and also memory issues. And the next is mental health problems that includes irritation, depression and confusion, because we can see that due to the deficiency, the neurological development is affected. And the next is if the condition is left untreated, if the deficiency is left untreated or addressed, then that can lead to permanent nerve damage in the long term. And the next is the risk. Who are at the risk of developing B12 deficiency? First is the vegans and vegetarians, because they are not consuming sufficient animal products. And the next is the elderly population, because of the limited ability to absorb the nutrients. And the next is the people with the digestive disorders like Crohn's disease and celiac disease. So people with this condition, the breaking down of the nutrition will not happen properly, and absorption of the nutrition will not happen properly. And the next is people following certain medications. For example, people who are taking medicine for diabetes or acid reflux will face the B12 deficiency because of the limited ability to absorb the nutrient. And coming to the B12 and heart health. So how this vitamin is related to the heart health? So in our human blood, we have an amino acid called homocysteine. So what happens? This B12 vitamin is very important to break down this homocysteine. So if there is not sufficient B12 in the human body, the building up of this homocysteine will happen, and over a period of time, this will increase the risk of clotting. And we know that the clotting will ultimately lead to what? Heart attack. So once again I repeat, so in our human blood there is something called homocysteine. It's an amino acid, and to break down this amino acid we need B12. And if there is no sufficient B12 in the human body, then the amino acid will build up. That means the homocysteine will build up, and it will increase the risk of clotting. And the clotting is the major reason behind the heart attack. And also this B12 deficiency has an indirect effect on the heart health, that is the anemia. So you can see that the people with this B12 deficiency will have anemia. So due to the anemia, the blood circulation, that means the red blood cell in the blood is not developed properly. As a result, the oxygen reduced. It will lead to reduced oxygen supply to the different parts of the body. So we know that the blood is carrying the oxygen, and this oxygen is very important for energy and the survival. So what happens? Because of the anemia, the oxygen supply is not happening properly. So what happens? The heart will take care of the responsibility. So to compensate this issue, the heart will work excessively. That means it is indirectly putting a strain or the stress on the heart. So over a period of time, it can lead to heart failure. So this is how the B12 deficiency is related to cardiovascular health. So in this topic, we discussed what is B12 and why the B12 deficiency is dangerous, and who are the people at the high risk of B12 deficiency, and how the B12 vitamin is related to heart health. So with this, we will move to the next article. Potential biosignatures by NASA says we may be closest ever to discovering life on Mars. The article is taken from the Indian Express. So recently, the Perseverance mission of the United States discovered biosignatures from the rock samples in the Mars. So in this background, let us discuss more about this achievement. And before that, we have to start with a short introduction about the red planet or the Mars. So coming to the position, it is the fourth planet from the sun, and it is a terrestrial planet. We know that because it has surface, and the surface has high concentration of iron oxide, and that gives a reddish appearance to this Mars, and that is why the Mars is also known as a red planet. And coming to the size, it is only the half the size of the Earth with a diameter of 6,779 kilometers. And coming to the length of the day in a Mars, so you can see that it is very similar to Earth with 24 hours and 37 minutes. But in the case of year, the length of an year in a Mars is nearly double comparing with Earth. So an year in the Mars is nearly 687 Earth days. And coming to the moon, it has two moons. First is Phobos, and the second is Deimos. And coming to the atmosphere of the Mars is really thin with a high concentration of carbon dioxide and nitrogen, and also with a little amount of argon. And coming to the temperature is very cold with an average temperature of minus 63 degrees Celsius, but the temperature can vary between minus 140 to 20 degrees Celsius. And coming to the surface features, the Mars has two records. The first is Olympus Mons, the largest volcano in the entire solar system, and the next is Valles Marineris, the largest canyon in the entire solar system. So here you can see the picture of the Olympus Mons. It is the largest volcano in the entire solar system, and it is a shield volcano. And here you can see the Valles Marineris, and it is the largest canyon in the entire solar system. And if you know the real size of this canyon system, you will be surprised, because you can see that if you put this Valles Marineris in the map of the United States, then it will touch it will cover the entire map of the United States from from west to east. That means if you decided to walk from the one end of the canyon to another end, then you are literally walking from the one end of the United States to another end of the United States. And the next is our achievement in the field of Mars. So we know that Mongolian. So as an Indian, we cannot remain silent about our achievement in the in the research in the Mars. So it is a Mars orbiter mission launched by the ISRO, and it was launched on 5th November 2013 using the PSLV C-25 rocket, and it was launched from the Sriharikota. And the Mars orbit insertion happened on 24th September 2014, and you can see that we launched the mission on November 5th 2013, but the mission reached the Mars orbit in 2014, September 24, and the mission was a great success, not just for India but for the entire world. And you can see that the cost of this mission makes the mission more attractive. So the cost of the total cost for this Mars orbiting mission was 450 crore, that is nearly $74 million, and this makes the Mongolian mission the cheapest Mars missions in the world. And coming to the achievements of other nations in the Mars. So first is NASA. Currently the Perseverance is active. So the Perseverance was launched in 2021, and with advanced car-sized rover, and it is focusing on collecting samples. And the next is Viking 1 and 2. Before the Perseverance, the United States launched the Viking 1 and 2, and the first, it made the first successful landing in the Mars with the focus on, experiments related to life detention in the Mars. And the next is the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic, that is Soviet Union or the Russia. So they launched many Mars missions, and the famous one is Mars 3, and it made first soft landing in the Mars, and it transmitted information for nearly 20 seconds, but after it got disconnected. And the next is European Space Agency's Mars Express, and it was launched in 2003, and even today this mission is active, and it is giving a lot of information related to water, and the geology of the Mars. And the next is a Hope probe. It was launched in 2020 by the United Arab Emirates, and it is the first Arab mission to the Mars, and it studies atmosphere and the climate in the Mars. So coming to the biosignatures. So what is mean by biosignatures? Like I mentioned at the beginning, the Perseverance mission, they found biosignatures in the Cheva Falls. That is the name of the rock samples that we discovered in the Mars. So from these rock samples, we found the biosignatures. So what is meant by biosignatures? Are they conclusive proof? So with this biosignature, can we say that there was a life in the Mars? So biosignatures are the chemical, structural, or the mineral traces that have biological origin or formed through biological process. But this biological proof alone, we cannot say that there was a life existed in the Mars in the past. But this is hinting a possibility of the life that existed in the Mars. So not that it is not conclusive. So with this biosignatures alone, we cannot conclude that there was a life in the past, but this is a hint. And coming to the key findings from the Cheva Falls. Cheva Falls are the rock samples that we collected from the Mars, and this rock is made up of clay and silt, and in the case of Earth, this clay and silt has a potential to preserve the microbial life. And you can see that the rock also contained organic carbon, sulfur, dioxide, oxidized iron, and also phosphorus. And this combinations could be a fingerprint of microbial life in the Mars. But at the same time, we can also say that this can be also formed through non-biological or abiotic process. So with this, this discovery is a major milestone. But with this discovery alone, we cannot conclude that there is a life existed in the Mars, or there is a life in the Mars. So in this topic, we discussed the basics about the Mars and what are the a short introduction about our Mongolian mission and its achievement, and also the new discovery in the Mars related to the possibility of life. So with this, we will move to the next article. Political instability and economic difficulties behind Gen Z rage in Nepal. The article is taken from the Hindu. So we know that for the last few days, the Himalayan state was burning. What is the real reason and how this is going to affect the India-Nepal relation? Let us discuss. So before getting into the present political crisis, we have to understand about the political dynamics of the Nepal. So how the politics of the Nepal evolved over a period of time. So if you trace the history, the India and the Nepal shares a common history up to a particular point of the in the past. For example, up to the 4th century, both nations shares the common history, cultural history. For example, we can see that many important cultural places in the Indian history is located in Nepal. For example, Lumbini, the birthplace of Buddha, like that. So we can see that in the 4th century, the Lichavi dynasty became the powerful dynasty in the Nepal. They took the control of the hills and valleys in the Nepal. And you can see that since the 4th century, the Lichavis, they had a very good relation with the India. That means they had a very good relation with the Gupta dynasty. And we know that the famous Lichavi princess Kumara Devi married the Gupta ruler, Chandragupta first. We know that. And since the 4th century to 10th century, the Lichavi dynasty controlled the Nepal. And in the 10th century, the Lichavi dynasty was succeeded by another dynasty known as Malla dynasty. And this Malla dynasty controlled the Nepal from 10th to 17th century. And later, this Malla dynasty fell because of lot of internal dissensions and other reasons. And followed by that, the Shah family. A Shah family was they are a royal family, controlled the principality of Gurkha, and they influenced the hills and valleys and also the plains of Nepal and became the prominent power and took the control of Nepal in the 17th century. And you can see that since 1770s to 1951, the history of Nepal witnessed a series of conflict between the Shah family and various other nobility family in the Nepal. And you can see that if you take the geography of the Nepal, it has a great relation with the politics of Nepal. For example, if we know that Nepal is a small state, and the northern part of the Nepal has a harsh climate condition, landscape, and we know that it is covered by Himalayas. That means it is an Himalayan state, but here we can see the harshness of the Himalayas. Therefore, the population is very less, economic activity is very less. And if you take the second area, that is the hills and valleys in Nepal, and here we have population and some economic activities. But the majority of the Nepalese population is located in the plains of the Nepal. It is densely populated and known for high economic activity. So we can see that any political entity or any person who can influence the plains in Nepal has high possibility of taking the control of the Nepal. And you can see that this is the relation between the geography and the politics in Nepal. And you can see that if you take any dynasty, for example, Lichavis or Mallas or Shah family, they all influence the hills and valleys and plains, and automatically they influence the entire Himalayan nation. And you can see that the Shah family came to power in 1770s, and you can see that they controlled the Nepal till 1951. So, but in the meantime, there was a change. That was in the beginning of the 19th century. There comes the Anglo-Nepalese War or the Anglo-Gurkha War. So what happened in the Anglo-Gurkha War? The Shah family was defeated, and the Nepal accepted the suzerainty of the British East India Company. So not that the British, they did not colonize the Nepal. Instead, the Nepal accepted the suzerainty of the British East India Company, and the British. So like I already mentioned, the Shah family, and there are various other nobility family in the Nepal. So they were constantly engaged in the tug of war for power. So what happened? This was an opportunity for the British to do their divide and rule policy. So what happened? They accepted another influential family in the Nepal as Rana. this Rana family became the hereditary prime ministers um, in the Nepal. So what happened? They controlled. They had the real power, in the Nepal till 1951. But after the decolonization, the monarchy was restored in Nepal, and you can see that in the 1951 the monarchy was restored, and this 1990s up to 1990s the Nepal witnessed absolute monarchy. But in 1990s again there was a change in the Nepal politics, that is the emergence of the democratic movement, and the major demand of this democratic movement was the constitutional monarchy. And you can see that finally in 1990s the absolute monarchy in the Nepal got replaced slowly by the constitutional monarchy and with the parliament. So what happened? It is similar to the system of England. So here you can see that in the meantime, that is in the middle of the 1990s, the communist Gurkhas also guerrilla troop also emerged in Nepal. They also appeared in the political context of the Nepal. They used various guerrilla tactics and a revolutionary method to get the control of the state. So in this time, you can see that this is happening on one side, and in 2008 there was a tragedy in the royal family of the Nepal. That is a murder of the royal family. So with this murder, the Nepal became a republic. So this is a short history, and in the meantime, the Communist Party in Nepal, they gave up their guerrilla warfare technique and their revolutionary method, and they also slowly assimilated into the system of the Nepal. And you can see that now the Communist Party is the biggest party in the Nepal parliament, and you can see that this is how the politics of the Nepal worked so far. So Lichabis to Mallas to Shah, and Ranas also influenced the politics, and finally the democratic movements of 1990s. And in the meantime, the emergence of the Communist Party with the guerrilla warfare techniques, and the 2008 murder of the royal family, and finally the Nepal became a republic. So this is a short history of political history of Nepal. And coming to the present crisis in the Nepal. So what is the triggering point? The protest was sparked by the ban on social media and the persisting corruption. And you can see that as a result, the people attacked the Supreme Court of Nepal and also the parliament. And the next is a political instability. So if like I mentioned, since 1990s, the democratic movements made made a transition in Nepal from absolute monarchy to constitutional monarchy. But even after that, no prime minister in Nepal completed their full term. That is showing the political instability in the Nepal even after the transition. And you can see that the corruption plus the political instability that resulted into more economic inequalities, social inequalities, and this made the people put a great question mark on the face of the people of Nepal. And you can see that the present crisis is the unemployment crisis. So the total unemployment in Nepal, according to 2022-23, is standing at a 12.5%. And you can see that among the unemployment, the highest problem is faced by the youth population between the age of 15 to 24. So that unemployment in this age group is standing at 22%, which is highest, and it is followed by the age group of 24 to 50, and the unemployment rate between this in this age group is 11%. So this is showing how the youth population in the Nepal is suffering because of the unemployment. And you can see that because of the domestic crisis, the migration rate in the Nepal is also high. You can see that 1 in 4 men in the Nepal household are working abroad. And you can see that between 1990s and 2022, the female headed household in Nepal rose from 13% to 37%. So the men are going abroad to work in other countries, right? And also the remittance of and also the dependence of the Nepal on remittance. So you can see that the remittance from other countries contributes to nearly 33% of the household income in the Nepal, and also contributes to 33% of the GDP in Nepal. And this makes the Nepal the fourth most remittance dependent nation after Lebanon, Tajikistan, and also Tonga. And coming to the India-Nepal ties. So how this present issue in the Nepal is going to affect the India-Nepal ties. So before that, we have to understand a short background about the India-Nepal relation. So historically and culturally, we can see that both nations are tied together, especially related to the Hindu culture, Buddhism, and both nations shares the legendary epics of Mahabharata and Ramayana. And in 1950, both nations signed a treaty of peace and friendship, which allowed the free movement of people and goods between the countries. And you can see that millions of Nepali citizens are working in India, and also the Gurkha soldiers are serving in the Indian army. And the next is the cooperation in the field of economy. So you can see that the largest trading partner and investor for Nepal is the India, and over 60% of the Nepal's trade is with India, and the major collaboration between the two nations are in the field of energy, especially in the field of hydropower. So you can see that Arun, and Karnali, so various hydropower projects. So these are brought under the collaboration of India and Nepal. And also India is supporting the Nepal in the field of infrastructure, health and education. So you can see that up to the recent times, the Benares Hindu University was a education hub for citizens from Bhutan and Nepal. But now these days it got changed. They are migrating to South Korea and all. But in the past, up to the recent times, the many universities, including the Benares Hindu University, was an education hub for the South Asia, especially the people from Bhutan and Nepal. And coming to the challenges, so what are the challenges? The first major challenge is security, that is the spillover of the present crisis. So you can see that because of the crisis, there may be a possibility of illegal migration, smuggling, insurgents activities in the border region, and also you can see that the rising influence of the China, is also another major security concern for India, because we know that once the last year the Bangladesh witnessed a political change. So what happened when the Hasina government was there, that time the India had very good ties with the Bangladesh. But when the new government came to power, they changed their approach. They showed more inclination with China, and this was a similar case in the case of Maldives, and also in the case of Sri Lanka. And the next is the economy. So we can see that the instability can lead to increased migration, especially the Nepali workforce into India, and also the biggest trade between the India and the Nepal can be disrupted, especially in the field of energy. And the next is a strategic challenge that includes the weak governance can enable the influence of China. So you can see that China these days, they are supporting many nations through infrastructure and through health and education for their own benefit. So you can see that they already influenced the many African nations, for rare earth minerals. And at the same time, they brought the Belt and Road Initiative. So you can see that many nations are falling for this. And recently, Sri Lanka, biggest example. And what happens when China gets the influence over this region? Then the China gets influence in the Himalayan region. So this will automatically reduce the position of India in the Himalayas. And the next is a social concern. So you can see that the upcoming government, they may show more inclination towards other parties, and there is a possibility that they may create anti-Indian sentiment, and this will weaken the goodwill of the Nepal with India. And the next is the projects, especially the hydropower, pipelines, roads, railways. All these projects may face delay due to the unrest. And coming to the way forward, so what can be done? So first is a democratic support. So instead of openly supporting any particular faction, or instead of giving an opinion, we have to support the system in the Nepal. We have to support the democratic system in the Nepal. We have to support the governance, transparency, and also the inclusive politics in the Nepal. So we can see that if you support a faction in the Nepal, then it will aggravate the crisis in the Nepal. And the next is economic cooperation. For example, increasing the speed of projects like hydropower, enhancing connectivity and boosting job opportunities, and also collaborating in the field of tourism, and widening the Indian market for Nepalese goods and services will also strengthen the India-Nepal ties in the upcoming days. And the next is working on people-to-people ties. So we know that both the nations shares a common cultural history. So therefore, working on this area will definitely improve the people-to-people ties. So for that, we can collaborate in the field of health, we can collaborate in the field of education, we can collaborate in the field of job and student exchange program, and also we have to focus on the Gen Z population. So we know that the Gen Z, this movement is known as Gen Z movement, because the people who stood in the forefront of the movement belongs to this Gen Z generation. So if we can support them, definitely it will improve the India-Nepal ties in the upcoming days, especially in the post-crisis days. And the next is the working in the field of strategy and security. That includes cooperation in the field of border management, working on climate resilient and disaster resilient infrastructure, and standing for climate justice. So we know that both the India and Nepal are affected by the climate change. And in Nepal, you can see that as a Himalayan state, it is the melting of the glacier, increasing rate of earthquake. So this this constantly brings challenges to the people and their life in the Nepal. So working in this area will enhance the India-Nepal relation in the upcoming days. And also engaging with the Nepal in other forums like SAARC and BIMSTEC will also bring trust between two nations. So these are the methods that we can take to enhance or to restore our relation with Nepal in the post-crisis times. So in this topic, we discussed how the politics of the Nepal evolved over a period of time, how it is working, and the relationship between the geography and the politics of Nepal, and what is the India-Nepal ties, and how the present crisis will affect the India-Nepal ties, and what can be done to improve the Nepal-India ties in the upcoming days. So with this, we will move to the next article. Warning signs your body needs more sleep. The article is taken from Indian Express. So we know that the sleep is very important to ensure better performance and well-being of the individuals. And that is why the sleep is considered as a fundamental right in India and also across the world. But due to the changes in the lifestyle, due to the changes in the working pattern, so we can see that many people are not getting a sufficient amount of sleep these days. And in this background, let us discuss more about the importance of the sleep. So starting with the importance of sleep, why the sleep is important? Because the sleeping is very important for ensuring better restoration and healing of the body. So we know that due to the excessive activity, due to the work, our body will be tired. So to restore the energy and to ensure the better healing, we need a good amount of sleep. And the next is brain function and memory. So the brain growth will be happening mostly in the time of sleep. So better sleep is very important for better brain function and memory. And the next is emotional well-being. A person without a sufficient amount of sleep may experience irritation, anger issues, and anxiety. And the next is the physical health. So you can see that a person is not sleeping for a long time, then eventually the stress hormones will develop, and the stress hormones will eventually elevate the blood pressure, and the increased blood pressure will lead to cardiovascular problem. And the next is better performance. So you can see that if the body is restored with a good amount of energy, if the brain is functioning well with a good memory and focus, and if the person is emotionally stable with good physical health, then automatically his performance in the academics and the workplace will improve. And the next is warning and the signs of the less sleep. So what are the signs associated with the less sleep? So the daytime symptoms including sleepiness, and fatigue. So the person will experience will be sleepy in the morning and also will be tired in performing his task. And the next is the mood changes. That means the person will face irritation, low mood. That means he will not have that energy to perform a particular task. And then next is the cognitive problems such as difficulty in focusing, and also memory problems. And the next is physical indicators that includes elevated blood pressure, heart problems, low energy, and also headache. And in severe cases, if a person is not sleeping continuously for many days, eventually he will experience hallucination. And what is the constitutional basis for the sleep? So like I mentioned in the beginning, the sleep is considered as a fundamental right. So the right to sleep is protected under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution, that is under the right to life and personal liberty. So you might have heard about the famous case, Ram Leela Maidan case. So in this case, you can see that the protesters were woke up by the police in the midnight, and the case reached the Supreme Court saying that the police disrupted the sleep of the protesters, and in this case the Supreme Court highlighted that the sleep is a fundamental right and it is protected under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution, that is right to life and personal liberty. And the next is global perspective. So you can see that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of 1948 under Article 24, the sleep is protected as a fundamental right, that is right to rest and leisure. So that is why you can see that across many countries are protecting the fundamental right to sleep. So if you take the case of European Union, they have the working time directive, and the stronger labor laws in the Nordic nations like Finland and Norway provide sufficient leisure time for the workers to take rest and restore their energy and body. So in this topic we discussed what is the importance of sleep and why the sleep is considered as a fundamental right, and we can also see what are the symptoms associated with the less sleep. So with this we will move to the prelims focus. So coming to the prelims focus, the first topic is Adi Sanskriti. So we know that due to the urbanization and due to the industrialization, the native cultures across the world is eroding. And considering the social crisis, the government of India launched a digital learning platform for tribal art forms, and that is Adi Sanskriti. And it was launched by the Ministry of Tribal Affairs to preserve the wisdom of every tribal song, story, practices, and also it will act as a platform for learning, progress, and livelihood. So what are the three components of the Adi Sanskriti? So the first is the Adi Vishwavidyalaya, it's a digital tribal art academy. And the next is Adi Sampada, it is a socio-cultural repository. And the next is Adi Hath, it's an online market platform which enables the tribal communities to sell their tribal products. And the next is the World Suicide Prevention Day. So we know that due to the increase in the technology, especially the development of social media and the changes in the work nature, due to the increasing stress, The loneliness and the increasing rate of suicide is a major social concern these days, and it is affecting both the developing and the developed country. So if you take the case of Japan, it's economically it is a well developed country, but at the same time Japan records high rate of suicide cases every year. So therefore the creating awareness about the suicide prevention is very important, and for that we have the World Suicide Prevention Day. It is observed on 10th September, and it is established in 2003 in conjunction with the World Health Organization, and it is organized by the International Association for Suicide Prevention to raise awareness across the world that the suicide can be prevented. And the theme for 2024-26 is the changing the narrative on suicide. And the next is the primary amoebic meningoencephalitis. So we know that recently we discussed an article related to the amoebic meningoencephalitis. It's a life-threatening condition that affects the central nervous system, and it is caused by Naegleria fowleri, also known as brain-eating amoeba. So how this happens? So when the amoeba will be present in the still water, and what happens if a person is taking bath or diving into the water body, the amoeba will enter into the nose, and through the nasal cavity it will reach the brain. So after once it reaches the brain, then the fatality rate for the infection is nearly 95%. So you can see that saving the person is really challenging. And recently the nearly 5 to 6 cases are reported in the state of Kerala. And the next is oath of office for Vice President. So we know that recently Mr. C.P. Radhakrishnan became India's 15th Vice President, and coming to the oath of office for the Vice President, it is administered by the President or a person appointed on behalf of him. And the oath, what is the oath? To bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of India, to fully discharge the duties of his office. So in this prelims focus, we discussed important topics related to the prelims, like primary amoebic meningoencephalitis, what is Adi Sanskriti, and also the oath of office for the Vice President of India, because India got 15th Vice President. So with this, we are coming to the conclusion for today's prelims focus. With this, we are coming to the conclusion for today's current affair analysis. If you like the video, hit the like button, give your feedbacks as comments, and share this content with your friends. And before leaving this channel, don't forget to subscribe and also hit the bell icon to receive on-time updates from the academy. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for listening to me. Have a nice day.